leaders always say, well, they come to me with their questions. I'm supposed to know the answers. And I say, yes, but do you ever want to go on vacation? Because at the end of the day, your goal and your role is to help them get to a place where they can run things without you. And as scary as that might sound, that frees you up to do the other capacity building things and the other elements that may have come up unexpectedly that have to get taken care of, that your team isn't equipped to take care of.
Welcome to the Made Leader Podcast, where exceptional leadership isn't about who you are, but who you choose to become. Join your host, Jen Arnold, for expert interviews, real-world stories, and practical advice that transforms managers into exceptional leaders. If you're a middle manager ready to unlock your potential, this is your podcast. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to the Made Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Arnold. This is the monthly coaching episode where my friend and colleague, Julie Binter, and I talk about a leadership challenge we've recently had a client face. Now, if you didn't listen to our last coaching session, let me tell you a little bit about Julie. Julie Binter is the founder of Clear the Way Coaching and Consulting, a company focused on helping leaders, teams, and organizations get better at the people stuff. As a highly accomplished leadership coach, facilitator, speaker, and trusted advisor with over 15 years of experience, she partners with people who want to increase their effectiveness, navigate change, and achieve professional and personal success. So here's what we're answering today. It is the question from a new leader of what do I actually do if I'm not doing the work? So as I was listening back to this, I realized we really didn't recap our advice in answering this question. We just started talking. And as I was consulting with my dear friend Claude, he told me that we talked about 12 individual ideas. So you're either going to find this very helpful or slightly overwhelming. So if you want to recap, I've written a blog post that captures the strategies that we discuss. And of course, there's always the show notes. So I'll link that up in the show notes so you can go directly to the blog or you can just listen away. Now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Julie. As always, thank you so much for listening to the Made Leader Podcast. Julie, welcome back to the Made Leader Podcast. Good to see your face again.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks for having me back. I'm glad I made the cut and you had me back for a second time.
That's right. If you screw up, you're not coming back again. So make it good, Julie.
See, that's so awesome about our field is that you really can't screw up because there's really no right way to do something, right? You just kind of make it work.
Right. Here's what we have to say, take it or leave it, right?
Exactly. It might work for you. It might work for me. Who knows?
Right. People are going to listen. They'll be like, no, not that idea, but maybe this idea. Right.
Exactly.
Well, what's going on in your world?
I read a really cool blog post this morning, actually, that talked about we try to add a lot of things into our life. And we already are overloaded and don't have time to do the things we are supposed to be doing or want to be doing. And so they talked about what if you were to look at the things and deepen what you were doing or make it more powerful or use, they say like shop your closet. So if you say, I want to journal, go around your house and see if you have already journals like sitting around, or I want to read more. The tendency is to go get a book. Well, go shop your bookshelf. And what are those books that you've bought over the last several months and years that you want to read? So I think I really took that to heart and just, I think settling in and getting into I think I told you my word for the year is like ritual. And so I really want to get into some habits that include like reflection and regular checking in to say, what am I doing? Is it working? How effective do I feel? What do I want to be doing? Really kind of digging into that. So.
Yeah, I love that, especially around the books, because I have, 4 or 5 books that I've started and I have not finished. And they're good books. It's just I don't know. I don't sit down and read them. So I think shopping them is a good idea. Well, today, a question came up and it is a new leader. and they got promoted into leadership. Not a lot of training, of course, as is normal. And one of the things they said to me was, what do I do if I'm not doing the work? And the way the question was asked was just kind of hands thrown up and, kind of frustration. Like, what do I do if I'm not doing the work?
Right.
And that's really what I want to talk about today, because they are not unusual. That's not uncommon, right?
Mhm.
Because as you become a leader, no one gives you the memo that, hey, your role is really going to change. That stuff you liked about your job? Yeah, your people are going to be doing that now, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And over time, you're the expert. You're not an expert anymore. You become more of a generalist, right? Like CEOs
Mhm.
can't be experts in every part of the company. And that's a hard transition, I think, especially initially.
Yeah.
So thinking of that and that situation, what are some things that this person could consider as they shift their mindset from individual contributor expert to new leader?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. I hear it a lot, and I think a lot of leaders struggle. I know I struggled with it when I became a leader. I still felt like I had to do all the work, or I couldn't delegate something to somebody if I could get it done in 5 minutes. Or, I wanted everybody to know that I was still invested and that I'm not going to ask you to do anything I wouldn't do, which I
Yeah,
hear a lot, which I
I
hear a
hear that.
lot.
Yes,
Yeah.
hear that very
Yeah.
commonly. You don't want to become now too high and mighty. I don't do that work anymore. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a couple things come to mind. One, so this is an aside to what you said earlier about if you really like elements of the position you had before you became a leader. I challenge leaders and I encourage leaders to say, what are the things that you really love to do? And how can you stay connected to those things as a leader? It doesn't mean you have to do all of the nitty gritty of those things, but I have found in my career that if I can continue to stay more involved in some of those key areas that bring me joy as a worker, as a person, I get more from it, and I'm maybe leading someone else or I'm managing someone else to help get it accomplished, but I still have my hands in it. So I wouldn't I wouldn't throw everything out and say you can't do any of it or stay involved if you're passionate, because you definitely want to keep things in your world and your day that light you up. But I think I would challenge that person to say, what is the work? So if I'm not doing the work, what am I supposed to be doing? And then to step back and say, well, let's go up a little bit. In a leadership position, you go up a little bit higher. You go maybe 30,000 foot view of your whole team. The work of your team is what? Who do you have on your team that is doing the things? Like, what do you have to accomplish? It's like drawing yourself back and saying, what are the goals we have? What are the deliverables we have? What are who are the people we have? And what are the things that might be holding us back or slowing us down, that I can influence or that I can help do something about? So I know I put a lot in that answer. Of course, I have a million more things, but
Nope, that's it. We're
yeah,
done.
yeah, exactly.
Well, I think there is that, thinking about the goals and objectives. I think even another, I guess, taking that one step further is, how do you connect that to the organization's goals? Because I
Hmm.
think that's one thing that can get lost, especially if you're in the minutia of your work. You forget, oh, there's a bigger organization. And
Yeah.
how does our team, contribute to that? And then I like asking the question, what happens if we don't exist?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that gets people going, well, or why are you here? What would be missing if we weren't here? And then I
Yeah.
think that can get people thinking, oh, crap, we kind of need to make sure we're showing our importance to the company, because every function is important, right? So, like you said, it's like taking that higher level view. What are we trying to accomplish? How does it push the mission of the company forward?
Hmm.
And I think you said, how do you look at your people and say, can everyone here, do they have the skills, the resources, the tools to get that done?
Yeah. Because a great question to add on to yours is why is our department, why is our team here? How do we serve the larger organization? And then within our team or department, what is the role of each position? Not each person, but when I look at the positions I have, are all those positions actually contributing towards that bigger picture? And that's where, as a new leader, you don't want to come in and start just swishing away everything and say, we're going to start all over. But that takes some time and effort as a leader when you come in just to learn the lay of the land, learn the people, learn this infrastructure, learn who the players are, right? Who are the collaborators? It's almost like a systems perspective. You need time to step back and observe, ask questions, get to know people, understand what the challenges are. And then as a leader, you can say, okay, how am I going to help do the work that we need to do to make this more effective?
Yeah, and I like that you said that, because to wait, to be an observer first, because there's nothing that just breaks trust like a new leader going in thinking they know what's going on and just changing everything.
Yeah.
That just, you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. You think you know it. And
Yeah.
I've seen leaders do that, and it backfires every time.
Big time.
And
Big
sometimes
time.
that's pressure they're getting, put in. Because I remember I got it was a lateral move, but into a leadership role, and I had a lot of expectations. I needed to turn these people into something, something specific, change their roles, right? And I was like, yeah. It's going to take time, and you do need to go, where are we today?
Yeah.
What are the skills
Yeah.
that they have now? What are they used to doing? What are they really good at? And, you can't take forever, of course. We live in a
Yeah, of course
fast-paced
not.
world, but you do
You
need to
can set
take.
timelines. Yeah, you can set a
Yeah.
timeline. You can say, what is that book, The First 90 Days, right? Like
Mhm.
where you come in and you take a lay of the land. But it's interesting too, because as we're talking, I'm thinking about how sometimes then we can get too caught up in like more of that functional, logistical side. But as a leader, you need to also understand the people side. So you have to look at each person individually and say, who are they? What do they want in the short term, in the long term? How are they functioning within their role? What could we do within their role to give them more opportunities? And where do they want to go? And so when you think about the work of a leader, your work expands exponentially because now you're not just doing the work of your tasks as an individual contributor. You now are responsible for all those people on your team and to make sure that you're helping move them forward in both their role as well as their own goals. And that takes a lot of time to figure out.
Yeah, coaching and developing your people, getting to know them,
Mm-hmm.
all the things that you've just mentioned. And I think there's this piece that I've seen, and this isn't even new leaders. I've seen it with existing leaders. People have been leaders for a while, not giving growth opportunities to people, but it's not out of malice or, harm. You're doing it because it's your sweet spot. You're taking on tasks that you don't need to do anymore as a leader. You know how to build a process, right? Like, do it in your sleep, but you do it because it's your default. You like it. It's the safe, fun
Mm-hmm.
place. Even if you're doing it, how do you bring someone along who needs to learn that side of the business or that task to make things go smoother in the future? You don't need to do that. And I've seen someone I was talking to yesterday to fall into the trap of, this is so timely. Yeah, I'll just go get it done. But I think you were talking about earlier, if I can do it in 5 minutes, why not just
Mm-hmm.
do it? But
Yeah.
it is that coaching and development of people. It's the people side too. It's this work. And then, of course,
Mm-hmm.
making sure your people are there coaching, developing, and can do the job well.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of having that group of people on your team. And it doesn't matter if it's one person or 10 people or 25 people. Every one of those people is different from you. And so even though you may have done the job a certain way, I think we lose out if we don't stop and say, I wonder if there's any other ways. Because I know from my own experience, I'm going to say I know from my own experience
Me.
that I go in and I think, oh, I have to prove myself. I have to show that I know what I'm doing. I have to be confident. I have to know the answers, right? And I hear that all the time. Leaders always say, well, they come to me with their questions. I'm supposed to know the answers. And I say, yes, but do you ever want to go on vacation? Because at the end of the day, your goal and your role is to help them get to a place where they can run things without you. And as scary as that might sound, that frees you up to do the other capacity building things and the other elements that may have come up unexpectedly that have to get taken care of, that your team isn't equipped to take care of.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I like what you just said, because this also came up in another conversation with a leader, that it's just when they come to you needing things, or, hey, trying to talk through a problem, it's not your job to solve it for them. But how can you turn some questions back to them? What do you think about that? What would be your first step? How do you think you could solve it? Right? You don't
yeah.
need to coaching them to do it so they don't keep coming to you and you're
Yeah.
you're their problem solver, right?
Right.
You're giving
Right.
them these skills to be able to go, oh, I can troubleshoot this. I can, process this out or whatever. And that is the coaching approach as a leader is a really good skill to pick up.
It really is. And at the end of the day, there are going to be times when you do have to give them the answer. You do have to share and talk it through. But what I love about asking the questions and just being open and curious is saying, I wonder where they're at. Where are they in their development on this thing? So how are they thinking about it, right? Are they analyzing? Are they considering? Are they taking the initiative, right? These are all these qualities that we want in our people. And just by taking a 5 to 10 minute break from giving them the answer, you can assess how their mind is working. And that's really cool. If I just came to you and said, you said, hey, Jen, or hey, Julie, can you answer this question for me? And I said, I'm sure I can, but let's talk about what information you have so far. What have you tried? Where are you stuck? Because then that tells me how much effort have you put into it. And I don't want to sit there and rattle off all these things and then have you say, I tried that. I tried that. I tried that. I tried that. Because then that just is going to be a breakdown in our relationship. But anyway, so I love the idea of even, say, oh, I don't have time for coaching, but it's those moments, 5 to 10 minute conversations where you can shift your perspective as a leader and say, I'm going to be curious. I'm just going to ask more questions this time and see what can they tell me, because it's possible they might already know the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And one thing I want to go back to something you said earlier is how do you create your team in a way that they don't need you, which is very scary. You said that it is very scary for a lot of people. But one of the things I think I'm not very good at, but I have found in business, it's super helpful. It's what are the things that you can create? You can get your people to create a process for. What things do you do repeatedly? Even if it's you have a lot of turnover, hopefully not. But if you do, is there a new hire packet? We eventually had a large team, and one of my folks wanted to create a new hire packet. I was like, by all means, do it, right? And she got it ready. So then we knew there's a consistent approach for onboarding on our team. But is there anything that you as a leader could say, okay, well, this either needs further definition and we need to work as a team to define what this looks like, or, hey, we do this process all the time. How do we create, God, or should I even say in a SOP, something for it, which some people, especially creatives, hate, but God, it frees you up to do the work that you enjoy a lot more if you can just standardize some of these regular things.
Oh, absolutely. I think we've all been subject to, here's the 10th time I'm doing this and I have to start from scratch because I don't have a process and I'm making it up as I go. And once you do have a set process for something, all of a sudden you start to be able to see how it can be improved. That's so powerful.
Yeah. I remember one time one of my bosses was like, Jen, there's got to be a formula for this. Can't you, why are you? And I was like, so offended. I was thinking no, do you realize the amount of creative work we do? All employers are different. Yeah. So I really did not like that advice. But now as I've gotten to be all right, these are the things, wasting time on these stupid tasks that are not contributing value to the team or the organization.
Yeah.
let me just bite the bullet. Let me get it done.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
frees me up for the work I really enjoy and want to do. Um, another thing that I think is important is hearing. You have to balance as a leader, what your people need and then what resources are available. But
Mm-hmm.
being that voice for your team when they're asking for resources, and it's a legit ask, right? Because everyone's going to ask for another staff member or more, money or budget. Like, you can't just always say that, yeah, we'll get you more. But if it's a legit concern, you can't reach a goal because you don't have something, being that advocate for your team is
Absolutely.
a really helpful thing for employees to see you advocating for them.
Yeah. And then when you think about time availability, if you indeed have created a system where the people that work on your team and for you are being able to do the work every day, and you then are saying, hey, we realize the work volume is really high. We need another person or we need another resource. You can then begin to decide, okay, what is the data I need? Who is it that I need to go talk to? How can I start planting seeds to get a sense on whether this is possible and what other options might exist if these aren't available, right? So it's that bigger picture thinking, but it's your people who are in the throes of the work every day aren't going to have time to do that work. They're going to look to you to make that effort and, as you said, advocate for them and be a champion for them. And that's our job as leaders, is to get the barriers, like clear the barriers out so that we can go forward and we can achieve the things that we want to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, another thing that can be missed because you're a new leader, you're observing, you're trying to get everything just managed and handled. And I think one piece that can be lost is collaboration with your peers. I think
Definitely.
you have to think about influence within an organization, because who gets the most resources? The people who are most influential. Like, it just
Mm-hmm.
happens, the ones who have the most social capital. And in the busyness of the work, because let's face it, a lot of these managers are still doing work. It's not like they're just sitting there twiddling their
Oh,
thumbs.
yeah. I don't know anybody who's not a working manager. Let's just be honest.
Right. So they're still in the work, but,
Yeah.
but also tasked with being more strategic. And so in that, I think it can be lost that I need to get to know people. They need to know me and my strengths. I need to know how we can collaborate. And I've seen people who are amazing at this build such strong bridges across the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing to consider if you're a new leader, is after you've caught your breath and you feel somewhat like, all right, I know what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Going out to collaborate with peers, just getting to know them and what they do and their job functions.
Well, and even add on to that, Jen, by saying, get to know how they lead, what's working and not working. When I facilitate sessions with leaders, they always talk about how it does start to feel lonely. You can't tell your team what you're experiencing. And if you don't have a lot of coworkers who are at your level, you don't really have a lot of people to talk to. Maybe your spouse or your partner or your dog gets to hear it at the end of the day. But, it's
Poor
interesting.
Watson.
I know, exactly. Poor doggy. But it's interesting how you mentioned, as you take your breath and get settled, to actually have that be part of those first 1, 2, 3, 4 months of new leadership, is to start building those relationships right away and getting to know those other people, those other functions, but also getting to know them and their style and what works for them. Things that they use for resources, things that may have worked in the organization or not worked, right? Like, it's almost like you're kind of mining for secrets, if you will, or you're mining for valuable gold about how to be effective. So you don't need to make maybe as many mistakes, right? Learning from others' mistakes and actions is so helpful. So.
Yeah, and it is lonely, right? Because, and especially within organizations, you can't go around, you don't want to go around going, oh, God, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yes, exactly.
My person's
one
really
wants
frustrating
that.
me, You're like, you have to, kind of keep that a little bit close to your chest, unless you have trusted a trusted resource. Not many. Don't go around talking that all in the organization. Don't do that.
You have to learn that too. You have to
I learned that
trust.
the hard way.
Yes.
All my lessons are, the hard ones. Came back to bite me after doing stupid stuff. But one of the things a prior boss of mine used to do, and it annoyed me at first, he always said to me, "How's your team doing? Who's doing really well?" He would always ask me about my staff. And so that forced me to have an answer, right? To be like, oh yeah, I'm kind of a manager. I should pay attention to them too. But I think it's also, we need to think of this for a future topic, but I think leadership meetings are a great opportunity to highlight people who are really shining, depending on what the nature of your leadership team meeting is. But it's okay to say, hey, I'm really struggling with somebody on my team. And, I need some advice if you have a trusted relationship. And again, if it's a trusted, no one's going to go outside of the meeting and talk about it, and you can lean on them for support. I think that can make it less lonely, but you have to have the right trust factor there on that leadership team.
Yeah. I think you could also build on that as well. And I think you mentioned it a few minutes ago, is also call out or recognize the people that are doing really well. So by sharing, hey, I'm having some struggles here. This is, does anybody have any ideas? But, oh, by the way, another side of that is, hey, I have a star performer who is amazing. And I think in the back of my mind, I think about that star performer may or may not want to stay in that role forever. And you almost become a champion of your high performing people that are, succeeding and just flying forward. And you're just there to keep the wind under their wings. It's interesting how, I've learned about a lot of really great people within organizations because their leaders choose to talk about what kinds of contributions they're making when we're meeting, maybe at a higher level.
Yeah. So. No, I love that. Because you say this person's really valuable to the team. They're outgrowing the role, but we want to keep them here.
Yeah.
What do you have? I've had several in my last job that people could transition into account manager roles, and they could go into a whole new, income bracket. They were doing things so well on the team, even just kind of outgrew it. And had that ability to go to the next step, a bigger step, if you will, because that's what we fostered. And so I like that thought of, hey, this person's just doing an excellent job and we need to keep them.
Right? Yeah. Let's keep them in the organization. Even if they're not going to stay in your team, that's okay, because we want to keep them around in the organization or in the company. I think it's a big win. It's interesting because we've talked a lot about the people on your team, the role of your team, the jobs of everyone, right? The functions. And I think one of the elements I want to make sure we talk about is self-reflection as a leader, and checking in and saying, who do I want to be as a leader? I ask leaders all the time that I coach. I say, who are some examples, or what are some examples of leadership's traits or leaders that you don't want to be like? And what are some examples of leaders that you do want to be like? And what are some differences, right? What are they doing or not doing that you want to have in your role as a leader? But then again, as you're getting to know your people and you're stepping back and you're saying, what do I need to develop? What kind of time do I need to put into my skills? What am I doing really well at that I can continue to strengthen? But what are some of the areas where I might be falling short and need to do some development? Because as we know, it's a never ending mission to be a leader. You're never going to be perfect as a leader, because the next thing's going to come along and it's going to challenge you in a different way. And you just, you learn and you acquire experience that you can then look and mold for the next opportunity.
Yes.
That challenges you.
It does. I mean, there's always a challenge there, right? Before we end, there's one I'm kind of hesitant to, but I feel like I need to. I want to put an asterisk by this next one. And I don't really like the word innovation, because I feel like it feels too flashy. for me, it's pressure filled. It has to be so new idea. But I think
Okay.
depending on the style of the person, not everyone thinks outside the box. But if
Mhm.
you are a leader who thinks outside the box, I think one benefit or one skill rather, that could really set you apart is when you're just looking at things from a different angle. You're
Mm,
finding a
yeah.
different way to reach the goal. You're saying, is this goal really the right one? What if we did this? Or here's a different idea. And I find that managers of managers are looking for some of those new ideas, those new thoughts. And it doesn't come easily to everyone. But that's also something, just, I think it gets to you're self-reflecting on yourself, but like, what about some of these goals? What about the team? What if you did something a little different?
Hmm.
Again, not everyone's strong suit, but maybe someone on the team you could tap into for that innovation and that creativity. And I think that can really set you apart as a leader.
Oh, absolutely. I would be again remiss if I didn't mention with DISC, right? You and I both
Mhm.
know DISC very well, and that whole idea of understanding where somebody lands in terms of their style. You will always have people in your team who really want to push the envelope. They want to innovate. They want to make it new. They want to make it exciting. And you're going to have people who want to continue to maintain or improve the status quo. And I agree with you. I feel like knowing who those people are and where you could give them some boosts or some projects or some, different work to do, that'll feed that. But you also push them a little bit out of their comfort zone too.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah, stretch them.
because as an ID, I always want to be moving forward. I want something new and innovative and fresh and exciting. And I know that, as you talked about, SOPs and having, procedures and processes that are really good and strong, that's going to help me get to those things that I want to do. But I have to have my ducks in a row on the everyday. So it's, I always encourage leaders to like look at who you have on your team, who's bringing what strengths in
Mhm.
terms of those things that you're challenged with, and to tap into their talents, and let them contribute in that way. So you're not taking it all on yourself as a
Yeah.
leader either. It's not
Yeah,
just your responsibility. Uh,
exactly.
yeah,
Well, do you think we've overwhelmed new managers even more?
probably. I was
They're
just
like,
looking to
damn,
see,
I'm going to go back to
if
being
we
an
didn't.
individual contributor.
I know, totally.
Julie, before we close out, like anything else to add? Like when you're thinking about, all right, we've given them a lot of things they could do as a new leader. Kind of, how do you want to wrap this one up?
I would say take a breath, look at the big picture, look at the people, look at the work, look at the organization, look at your peers, right? Kind of maybe make categories of things for yourself and kind of do some assessment at the front end and say, what do I know about these different things? What do I want to learn? So what do I have questions about? And what are my priorities? So where do I need to focus my energy earlier on versus later on? And how can I stay connected to the things that give me, are my passion or give me pleasure or keep me excited? Because, you know, we all know leadership is tough. Working with people can be tough and it can be draining, but it also can be very fulfilling. So we have to make sure that we're filling our own cup as well with work that we like. But this is all sometimes for people, it's new territory.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And also just giving yourself grace. It's you're figuring it out and you're going to keep evolving as a leader and you don't have to have all the answers. So
no. In
go in
fact,
there.
you don't want to have all the answers because you want to go on vacation.
Yes, take that vacation. Hey, that's one thing. Go schedule your vacation and make sure they know
There you
you're not
go.
gonna check email while you're gone.
Yes, day one of your new leadership role, look at your calendar and say, when am I taking my next vacation?
Uh,
And then work towards that.
exactly. So yes, I got to take this vacation. I need to get my team set up for me to be gone, right?
Yep, exactly.
Because the
Exactly.
unfortunate piece that took me a long time to figure out is we're all replaceable
We are.
to an
We
organization,
are.
right? We just
Yeah,
are. And
absolutely.
that's how they're set up. Because if they weren't set up that way, when anyone left, it would fall apart, right? So
Yeah.
Getting your team to run without you, I think, is a good kind of high level thing to think about, right?
Yeah. And how do I bring the most value? How do we make this the best experience for everybody involved while we're here? What's the legacy I want to leave? Even if you decide that you want to move to a different leadership role or back to an individual contributor, what do you want to accomplish in the time that you have? It's really important.
And one last thing, and I promise I'll shut up. But I heard the phrase, God, a few years ago, and I just really resonated, and you made me think of it because you talked about legacy. Is like, what is the leadership wake you're going to make? Right.
Yeah, I love that.
So thinking about the ripple effect of how you act, because that completely lost on me as a new leader. Like, it's like you are making an impact, whether you think you are or not. And so how do you want people to be treated around you? What's your leadership like?
Yeah. And honestly, like the learning part of it is always going to be constant, that you're never going to be done. You're never going to be perfect. Go talk to leaders who've been doing it forever, and they'll laugh and say, yeah, still don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
And I love hearing that. I mean, it's kind of scary in a way, but it's also good to know that there's no perfect way to do it.
Well, Julie, thanks for this. I appreciate your time. And until next time, we'll be back with another leadership challenge that we'll talk through.
All right. Looking forward to it. Take care.